Right? By now, well, we already made this announcement. Push aside your calculators. You don't need that today. For the brand new people, you're supposed to choose a team, right? You can just let me know in the chat. For the new people, the older people who were here since last week, you already chose a team and whatnot. You're either going to be on the red team, blue team, green team, or yellow. You choose whichever one you want. And you can just let me know in the chat, or you can just mentally make a note of it, right? Right, so let's get started. Before we move on, today's topic is multiplication and division. Last week we did addition and subtraction. And one of the key giveaways from last week is that I tried to drill it into your heads that multiplication and division and addition and subtraction have completely different rules to follow in maths, right? So last week we saw when we were doing addition and subtraction, two negatives does not give you a positive. All right. So anyway, take down today's main topic, multiplication and division. And I just want to do one quick revision question from last week, just to kind of make sure that we could compare the major difference between last week's work and this week's works, right? Because you're going to clearly see a huge difference between the two categories. Multiplication and division, once again, has completely different rules to addition and subtraction. Question today, right? This is your first revision question. Everyone simplify that expression, right? And send the answer on the chat for me, right? This one is full of tricks, right? It has a few tricks in it, but I have the rules. This is clearly an addition and subtraction question. And I made sure to put the rules that you already have in your books, right, from last week. I put it back on the screen for you so you can focus on it. Good luck, and everyone is required to send an answer on the chat, right? It doesn't matter if you get it wrong, only I could see your messages on the chat. Right. Last week. All right, so in maths in high school, obviously you're going to be introduced to letters in maths, right? It's going to be all over. So you see three different types of letters. That have X's, that have Y's, and things without any letters. So last week, what I did, I would circle all the X's. Everything that had an X in it, I would circle it. Now notice when I circle it, I'm circling the sign. Remember, all values in maths are either positive or negative. And to figure out the sign, you have to look to the left. So this 9, when you look to the left, it has a minus sign. That minus sign belongs to the 9 and the X. It's part of it. So when you're identifying that 9X, you have to include the minus sign. So you circle the minus sign as well. Just like how your hand is part of your body, you won't want anyone cutting off your arm. Wherever you go, your hands are supposed to go with you, right? So I circled all the X's. And then last week, I think I boxed off all the Y's, right? Now you notice I circling the signs. The minus belongs to 11. The positive belongs to the Y. In maths, whenever you have a letter by itself and you don't see a value next to it, like you don't see a number next to it, I indicated that it's automatically 1, right? So, and I don't want you to imagine it. I want you to physically write in that 1. And then it have some items without any letters. So I'm going to put little squiggly lines underneath the minus 13 and the positive 10. And what we're going to do something called grouping. We're going to do what? Merge all the X's in one area, merge all the Y's in one area, and everything without any letters in one area. So I probably should keep it color-coded. So all the X's, I'm going to write it here. Minus 2X, minus 9X, and minus 11X. x, right? So I put all the x's in one area. Then you write it in a single line. Then put all the y's together, minus 11y plus 1y. And then all the non-letters together, minus 13 plus 10, right? Think it's correct there. Don't think I missed out on anything. How much of you all had up to there, right? Give me a thumbs up if you at least got up to there, like you remember that you had to group it. Now, remember, it doesn't matter if you put the X's first, the Y's second, and the non-letters last. I went through that in detail last week. The order really doesn't matter. If you want to put the pink, the Y's first, feel free. It's really up to you. So let's handle the X's first. Remember, your brain can only handle two at a time. Let's handle these here. Minus 2x minus 9x. This is addition and subtraction. Same signs mean add. Both of them are minus. So you're adding 2 and 9. You're going to get 11. Don't forget to put back the x once. And you all, according to rule number 3, you always put back the sign of the larger item. Who is larger, the 2 or the 9? The 9, right? 9 is larger than 2. What sign does the 9 have? A minus. Right? We still have this other minus 11 to deal with. So when we merge these two together, we get minus 11x. And then the minus 11x joins the party. So we have to merge these two together now to get one answer. Once again, signs are the same. Same signs mean add. Both of them are minus. Add 11, 11. And you're going to get 22. Don't forget to put back the x. That's the letter involved. You just only put back the letter once. Now, according to rule number 3, you always put back the sign of the larger one. Now, I briefly mentioned last week that if both of them have the same size, one is 11 and the other one is 11, neither of them is larger than the other. In a case like this, choose any one. It already matters. You can choose this 11 or this 11. It doesn't matter. And just put the sign to the left. Okay? So whenever both of them have the same size, choose any one of them and put any sign. Right? It really won't matter. Right? In a case like that. Let's do the pink part. Right? Oops, that's not pink. Let me color code it. For the pink part, minus 11y plus 1y. Signs are different. He's minus and he's positive. Different signs mean what? Minus. So you're seeing 11 and 1 in your head. Minus it. 11 minus 1 is 10. Don't forget to put back the letter y. And according to rule number 3, you always put back the sign of the larger value. 11 is larger than 1. So put the minus sign. Right? You see, all right, my answer in one straight line. Huh? Now, for this. Signs are different again. Different signs mean minus. So 13 and 10 in the head. If you minus that, you'll get 3. Who's larger? The 13. Always put back the sign of the larger one. This is the end of the question, right? That's the end. Because you can't squish or summarize this anymore because all of them have different types of letters. You see, when you're adding and subtracting, you can't add and subtract items that have different types of letters. If the letter types are different, that's the end of the question. You can't really do anything more. Now, like I said, you can have the answer in different orders. If you want to put the minus 10y first, and then the minus 22x, and then the minus 3. Of course, you can have it in another arrangement. Just make sure the letter is correct, the number is correct, and the associated sign is correct. Right, so that's your first revision question today. And remember, this was addition and subtraction. Today's main focus is multiplication and division. And you're going to realize the rules are completely different. Okay? Right. So those who need to take it down, giving you 20 seconds. Once you're ready to move on, raise your. All right, so now we're moving on to multiplication and division. Now, don't start the questions as yet. I want you to take down the multiplication and division rules. In multiplication and division, well, first of all, you can clearly see the rules different. In multiplication and division, two positives give you a positive. I know a lot of people think two positives is give you a negative when you're multiplying and dividing. That's certainly not true. Two positives, just give you a positive. Two negatives, this also give you a positive. So in other words, when you're multiplying or dividing, once the signs are the same, like if you have two positive, your final answer will be positive. If the signs are both negative, your final answer will also be positive. You see, in multiplication and division, that's where you hear the popular saying, two negatives give you a positive. And that's true for multiplying and dividing, but it's not true for adding and subtracting. Once again, adding and subtracting is a totally different thing than multiplying and dividing. It's two different categories, two different sets of rules. Anytime your sign is different, like one is positive and one is negative, or the negative comes first and the positive comes second, the point is, once the signs are different, your final answer will always be negative. Now, multiplication and division could get a little bit complex. Remember in maths, it have three things you can actually bounce up in maths, right? It's either you're going to bounce up numbers, letters, or signs. Remember, you've seen letters throughout today. We know almost anything has a sign is either a positive or negative. Here's my advice. How you're brand new to multiplication and division, you don't want to do numbers, letters, and signs at the same time in your head. You'll get confused. Remember, most of you all know start. So I have a little thing, I just call it the NLS. I will do all my number calculations first. Then I will focus on all my letter calculations. And then I will do my signs last. So I just call it numbers, letters, and signs. Do it in that order, right? Handle the numbers first, handle the letters second, and last do the signs, right? So take a 20 seconds, take down these rules, and then we're going to try these 4 questions in front of us, okay? If the question has no letters, you just skip the letters part. Just shrug your shoulders, be happy. It's one less thing to do. But we keep in the order correct. Do the numbers first if it have numbers. Do the letters second if it have letters. And we do the signs last. So let's look at the first question today. Let me choose a cool color. Let me choose a kind of pinkish color here. Here we have -10 divided by 5. Now, I want you to do what? Make sure and put in your signs. We know this 10 is negative because when we look to the left, this 5, last week I told you, if you look to the left and you don't see a sign, it is automatically positive. So I want everyone to write in the positive by the 5 because 5 is really positive. When you don't see a sign, it is automatically positive. If you have the opportunity to put the positive in a different color, put it in a different color. That will remind you that it wasn't there in the first place. Let's start up this. This is a division question, so these rules apply. We're going to do the numbers first. Let's divide the numbers. Now, when you're dividing in numbers, you're only paying attention to the numbers. You don't care about letters and signs right now. You're a number person. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Everyone write 2 for me. We're finished with the number part. Next on the list is letters. It have any letters in this particular red question? No. So be happy. We skip the letters part because it don't have any letters. Does it have any signs? Yeah. And we divide in a minus by a positive. When these signs are different, when you have a minus and a positive, your final answer will be what? Minus. That's the end of the question. That is it. Yeah, I'm doing 4 examples. Don't worry, you'll get the hang of it, even if you didn't catch the first one. For those who are new to the class, you know, so those who were here last week, I do multiple examples till everyone catches on. Let's try the yellow question. The yellow question is a division question. So I know these rules apply to this particular question. We're going to do what first? The numbers. Pay attention to 12 and 4. That's all you're seeing in your head. When you divide 12 and 4, you get 3. Have any letters in this question? No. So be happy. One less thing to do. And who's last on the list? Signs. You're taking a minus and dividing it by a minus. When two minuses are involved, whether you're multiplying or divided, your final answer will be positive. Finished. That's the yellow question there. He out of the way. Now let's try the green. I just want to explain something. You're going to see some brackets. Now, brackets are not always in maths, right? Whenever you see something like if you have -3 and then you see brackets like 6, there's automatically a multiply in between. Now, don't get me wrong. You could have write this question as -3 multiplied by 6, and it would have been the same thing. But sometimes in maths, whenever they like to write it fancy. So whenever you see two items and they are separated by brackets, look at it here. This 3 is separated from this 6 by a brackets. What do we have in between? A multiply. The multiplication is understood. A lot of examiners and teachers don't put it in because that's a normal way of writing it in maths. Right? Don't ask me why that is the case. I guess it's something that has happened over the years, right? You had to learn to deal with it. But it's still a multiplication question at the end of the day. Now, this 3 is a minus. This 6, when you look to the left, you don't see anything, so it's automatically positive. So you put in the positive. Everyone write this question here and make sure you put the positive next to the 6. Because when you have anything in maths and you don't see a sign immediately to the left, it is automatically positive. Right? Erase this here. Right? So let's leave any multiplication sign there. So this is a multiplication question. At the end of the day, you're multiplying -3 by +6. So we're following these rules. Let's do the numbers first. Anybody can multiply 3 and 6. 3 by 6 is 18 from primary school. It have any letters in this question? Nope. Be happy. But we have some signs. When you multiply a negative by a positive, remember, a negative and a positive involved, your final answer will be minus a negative. Everyone try the last one for me, no? This is clearly a multiplication question because the 7 and the -5 is separated by a brackets. So you have to know there's a secret multiply there. Now, when you're sending the answers for me, you gotta be real specific here. I want to know if my final answer is positive or negative, right? So physically writing the positive or negative, right? Send it on the chat to send me a message. You can't send answers publicly to everybody. You have to click on me, the host, to send a message to me. Only I could receive messages. It's a safety thing now, because I don't want you all messaging each other, obviously, because we don't know who's who here. All right. So it's a multiplication question. This is not addition and subtraction. The numbers involved are 7 and 5. Let's do the numbers first. 7 by 5 is 35. It have any letters in this question? Nope. So be happy. Who's next on the list to do? Signs. 2 minus, look at here. 2 minus signs, when you're multiplying 2 minus, you get a positive. And a lot of people sent that answer. All right. Right. Letters are involved now. Everyone take down the red question. I want to do the red question with you all. Now, in multiplication and division, all the letters involved, you just have to put it back at the end of the question, right? All the letters. So if you, and when I say all the letters, like if the letter M, let me say it had a letter M. If the letter M appeared 3 times in the question, you would have to put it back 3 times. In addition and subtraction, you just only have to put back the letter once. Even if you have the letter M 3 times in adding and subtracting, multiplication and division, different. You just have to put back all the letters involved. But here's the thing. You not only have to put back the letters involved, you have to put it back exactly where it was in the first place. You can't move it to where you feel like. That will make sense in a little while. All right, so let's try this one. Minus 9y divided by 3. We're going to do the numbers first. This is clearly a division question. You see 9 and 3 in your head. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Who is next on the list? Letters. What letters that have in that question? Y. So you put back the Y. Nothing amazing there. The letter Y was there. You put it back because the letter Y had nothing else to do except just lime around. Signs. You have a minus and a minus. When 2 minus signs are involved, you get a positive. Now you notice something, right? If this was an addition and subtraction question, if one had a Y and the other one didn't have a Y, the question would have shut down. You would not be able to do anything in the question if it was adding and subtracting. If you look back in the rules for adding and subtracting, for you to add or subtract, the letter types must be the same. But in multiplication and division, even if the letters are different, you could still go ahead and do the question. Okay? Let's try the yellow question. It's a division question. Minus 20 divided by 5x. As usual, we do the numbers first. Let's divide 20 and 5. 20 divided by 5 is 4. This 5 is a positive because if you look to the left, you don't really see anything. So it's automatically positive. You have to physically write it in. Right? I'm going to do the letters last in this one, right? Just to show you. The order really doesn't matter. If you want to do the letters first and then the numbers, you could, right? You just don't try to do all at the same time. But I want to do the letters last in this one because this one has a trick. Let's move ahead to the signs. Minus divided by a positive. When it's a minus and a positive, the final answer is a negative. Now here's the trick. Which letter is involved? X. Remember in multiplication and division, even if the letters are different, the top doesn't have a letter, but the underneath has a letter, which is X. You can still go ahead and do the question. But here's the wrong thing to do. I'm doing the wrong thing on purpose. People will see the letter X and then they'll put X here. But that's wrong. You just have to put back the X in the same position it was in. Remember, when we now met the X and the X was underneath, he wasn't on top. So how dare we put him on top with the 4? He started off underneath. At the end of the question, please put him back underneath. That X belongs underneath, not on top. Letters, if a letter starts off on top, at the end of the question, he will be on top. If the letter started off underneath, well, he's going to remain underneath that division sign at the end of the question. Take down the answer. And we're going to try the green one now. The green one is a multiplication question because you see in brackets. Okay? All right, let's go. I know I'm saying it over and over, but remember a lot of you are new to it. What's separating this P and this 6? Are brackets. So what do we have in between here living? A multiplication, right? That's a multiplication sign. So it is a multiplication question. We're going to do who first? The numbers. So pay attention to 3 and 6 in your head. You don't care about nothing else. You just see 3 and 6 in your head. Multiply them. 3 by 6 from primary school is 18. Which letter was involved? P. Say put back the P. This 6, we don't really see a sign, but we know he is positive. When you're multiplying a negative by a positive, remember, a negative and a positive involved. Your final answer will be negative. The final answer is minus 18p. Or I know some of you might write it like this, minus p18. That's technically correct, but usually in maths, you just put the letters after. Nothing is mathematically wrong with putting the p first, like p18 is the same thing as 18p. But your teacher will prefer, and all textbooks, if you look at it, they just like to put the letter after the number in the final answer. That's the norm. That's normal maths behavior, or maths manners, as you call it. Right? Not too hard, right? I think this is pretty easy. Look at the next one. The blue one has 2 types of letters. That is not a problem. We can deal with that. Because technically, this is a multiplication question. Because there's a secret multiply between the P and the brackets. So we just follow in these rules. Do numbers, then letters, and then signs. And it will always be easy. Let's do the numbers first. 8 multiplied by 3. 24. We finish with the numbers, the letters. What letters are involved? P and A. You just have to write back the 2 letters involved. Just write PA or AP. It doesn't matter. Just make sure the letters come after the number. So if you want to put PA or AP, because the 2 letters involved are P and A, right? So PA or AP. Just make sure and put back all the letters involved. And this is our minus and our next minus. The last time I checked the rules, when you multiply 2 minus or 2 minus signs are involved in a multiplication or division, bam, positive. The answer is positive 24 PA or 24 positive AP. Anyway, the order of the letters doesn't matter. All right, Carter. All right, so you notice it looks a little bit harder. It has brackets, but inside the brackets, it have more than 1 items inside the bracket. So everyone take down the yellow question for me. Take down the yellow question. I'm going to work out the yellow one for you. Question at the end of the day. It is a multiplication question. I know you're seeing 4x minus 8. Inside the brackets is an addition and subtraction question, but you can't simplify inside the brackets because he has an x and the 8 does not have an x. So you can't really simplify that. This question boils down to a multiplication question because the 2 and the 4 are separated by brackets. So there's a secret multiply living there. The 2 is a negative. The 4 is a secret positive because when you look to the left of the 4, you don't see anything. So you put in a positive. So here's how brackets work. Whenever you have more than 1 items inside a bracket, everyone outside the brackets gets multiplied. Everybody gets multiplied by the item outside, not just the closest person. A lot of people make this mistake. You have 2 items inside the brackets. You can clearly see that, 4x and 8. Most people will say, hey, the 4 closer to the 2. So I will only multiply the 4 by the 2. I mean, instinctively, that is what your brain will tell you to do, but that's actually wrong. So don't listen to your brain this instant, right? Everybody inside the brackets is to be treated equally and fairly. Everybody has to get multiplied by the 2. So best way to show this is by working it out. Let's do the numbers first. Everybody inside the brackets gets multiplied by 2. You're only paying attention to the numbers. 2 multiplied by 4 is 8. And 2 multiplied by 8 is 16. Don't take it down yet. All we did was handle the numbers. We multiplied every one in the brackets by 2. So 2 by 4 is 8. 2 multiplied by 8 is 16. We're finished with the numbers. Let's do the letters. When we were multiplying the 2 and the 4x, the letter involved there was x. So we put back the x. When we were multiplying the 2 and the 8, the 2 doesn't have any letters and the 8 has no letters. So you don't put any letters for the 16. Sometimes there are letters involved, sometimes they are not. Finish with the letters. Who's next? The signs. When you're multiplying the 2 and the 4, the 2 is a minus, the 4 is a positive. A minus and a positive gives you a negative. And when you are multiplying the minus 2 by the minus 8, the 2 has a minus and the 8 has a minus. 2 minus give you a positive. That's your final answer. You have to write it in one horizontal line. Take it down. We do the next example. Don't worry. At the end of the day, we just doing the numbers first. Then we handling the signs. And then we handling what? The letters, sorry. And then we handling the signs. Numbers, then letters, and then signs. We just treating everybody fairly in the brackets. Okay? If you didn't catch your first one, don't worry, don't worry. We have a next one to do. All right. Let's handle the next one here. Let's put in everything that's missing. We know between the y and the 2, there's a bracket. So we know they have a secret multiply here. This 2, if you look to the left, you don't see anything. So it's automatically positive. This 6y, if you look automatically to the left, you don't see anything. So it's automatically positive. Put in all the signs that are missing, that the examiner intentionally left out. They will leave it out. Okay. So at the end of the day, this is a multiplication question. So these are the rules that apply. Everyone inside the brackets gets multiplied, keyword, by the item outside. Let's start. Let's do the numbers first. All the numbers inside here get multiplied by the number outside. So you're seeing 6, 2, and 5. That's all you're concentrating on. 6 multiplied by 2 is 12. 6 multiplied by 5 is 30. I multiply both numbers on the inside of the brackets by the number outside. 6 by 2 is 12. 6 multiplied by 5 is 30. So we're finished with Mr. Numbers. Let's do the letters. When we were multiplying him and him, what 2 letters were involved? Y and X. So you put YX. You put back all the letters involved. You can put it the other way. You can put X before the Y. Just make sure and get both letters there. So you can put 12YX or 12XY. Your teacher won't care, right? But I just let you know, I'm a person who prefers alphabetical order. X comes before Y in the alphabet, so I like to keep it like that. That's just how my brain is organized. Now, when we were multiplying the 6y and 5y, what 2 letters were involved? They had a y here and another y. You have to put back the y twice in multiplication and division. If the same letter occurs more than once, like if it occurs twice or 3 times, you have to write it 3 times. But y in maths, remember how 5 multiplied by 5 is 5 squared? Y is really y multiplied by y. You have to put y squared. If you leave it as y, mathematically it's correct. But your teacher go watch you funny. You know what the teacher will say? The teacher will assume that you don't understand the concept that if you multiply 2 same things, it summarizes it to a squared. You don't want to look like you don't know that. So if you end up with 2 same letters next to each other, y is really y squared, not 2y. Y multiplied by another y is y squared. Just like how in maths, 5 multiplied by another 5 is 5 squared. Let's handle the signs now. When you were multiplying the 6 and the 2, it was a positive by a next positive. Look at them. Both of them were positive. Two positives give you a positive. Bam. When you were multiplying the 6 and the 5 was minus, right? A positive and a minus. A positive and a minus is a minus. You're finished with the entire question there. That cannot be simplified any further. I want you all to try the last one for me, the blue one. I know it looks intimidating, but keep in mind, even though it's 3 items, do all the numbers first, do all the letters after, and then the signs. You will get 3 answers because it have 3 items in the brackets. Good luck, right? If you get it wrong, you get it wrong. Just try. Listen. I think the 2, when you look to the left, you don't see anything, so it's automatically positive. So I hope you remember to put T in the positive. And who lives in between the P and the brackets? In maths, there's a secret multiply living there. Let's do the numbers. All the numbers inside here get multiplied by the value outside. Who's the number outside? 8, right? 8 by 2. Let me get a different color here. 8 multiplied by 2 is 16. 8 multiplied by 5 is 40. 8 multiplied by 3 is 24. So at least I hope everyone got the multiplication of the numbers correct. Because that's primary school work, right? It is multiplying all the numbers inside by the value outside. So numbers, finish. E out. Letters. When you are multiplying the 8 and the 2, P by M is PM or MP. I like to keep it in alphabetical order. M comes before P, right? When you are multiplying the 8 and the 5, the 2 letters involve a P. P multiplied by another P, I showed you all this, is P squared. And when you were multiplying the 8 and the 3 has no letter, but the 8 has a P. So you just put back the P, right? I kind of squeeze it in there. So we're finished with the letters. Next on the list is the signs, right? The 8 is a minus, the 2 is a positive. According to the chart, a minus and a positive is a minus. When you are multiplying the 8 and the 8 is a minus, the 5 is a minus. When you multiply 2 minus, you get a positive. And the same thing for the 8 and the 3. The 8 is a minus, the 3 is a minus. Multiply 2 minus, bam, positive. How much of you all got that 100% correct without my assistance? It doesn't matter if you put MP or PM, right? Remember I said that already. The order of the letters really doesn't matter. So 6 MP, 16 MP, or minus 16 PM. Up to you. But you must have the P squared part. Please don't put P and then a next P next to it. That shows, will show the examiner that you're weak in maths. P next to our next P is really P multiplied by P, which is P squared. Slide here. Oh no, fractions. You're gonna get a headache with this one, right? Actually, not too much of a headache. But everyone take down this first question here. It's brackets, so yes, there's a secret multiply between the 2/5 and the 4. But don't write it too small, right? This one here, it's going to take a little while to explain it. I have a few concepts I have to explain when it comes to fractions, right? A few little concepts, right? But write down the question. Don't get scared. I'm going to break it down. You can only multiply a fraction by a next fraction. These are general things I'm telling you in maths, right? Like, for example, if I have 2/3, right? Multiply by 4/5. I'm sure you all encountered this in primary school. So we have one fraction, which is 2/3, and a next fraction, which is 4/5. and you are asked to multiply them. I don't know if you all remember this in primary school, but when you're multiplying fractions, you just multiply the numerators and then the denominators. In other words, you multiply the numerator matches up with the other numerator. So you would say 2 multiplied by 4, you multiply the two numerators to get 8. And then you will multiply the two denominators. 3 by 5 is 15. And if it could simplify, you reduce it. But this question cannot be reduced. So the first simple concept I want to revisit is that if you have two fractions to multiply, you multiply the two numerators, you get your answer, and then you multiply the two denominators. But what happens when there is only one fraction and the other item is not a fraction? Right? Let me explain what I mean by that. We all know 3 is not a fraction. 3 is a whole number. But did you know in maths, you could convert any whole number to a fraction? All you have to do is put divide by 1. Let me explain that trick to you. When you divide something by 1, it doesn't change the value. And 3 divided by 1 is still 3. Anything divided by 1 is itself. But the point is, let's say you need a fraction. Let me say you're addicted to fractions. And you go into the numbers market, I don't know, right? And you need a fraction. And like, I need fractions, I need fractions. But you only have whole numbers on sale, right? All you have to do is buy the whole number and put divided by 1. And you would have converted that whole number into a fraction. It's not a cool looking fraction, but it's still a fraction. So where am I going with this? Suppose one day I come and ask you to multiply 2/3 by 7. I just told you you can only take a fraction and multiply by another fraction. That's the most convenient way to do maths. 2/3 is a fraction, but 7 is not a fraction. But I can't trick you. You know you can convert the 7 to a fraction. 7 is the same thing as 7 on 1. It doesn't change the mathematical value of the 7. It's just a convenient way now to get a fraction out of a whole value. And now both of them are what? Fractions. You multiply the top by the top. 2 by 7 is 14. 3 by 1 is 3. Bam. And you can leave it as an improper fraction today, right? I'm a fan of improper fractions. I hate mixed fractions. I'll take an improper fraction any day over a mixed fraction, right? So, once again, if letters get involved, for example, if I have 3/5 multiplied by, let me call it, I don't want to give it away too much, 6x. 3/5 and 6x is not a fraction, but isn't this the same thing as 3/5 multiplied by 6x on 1? I just converted the 6x to a fraction by just putting a divide by 1. And you just multiply the top by the top, the underneath by the underneath. 3 by 6x is 18x. The 6 by 3 is 18, and then you put back the letter involved. 5 by 1 is 5. These are convenient things to know about, about maths to make life easier. Okay? Another thing you need to know about fractions is this. If I have 2/5 and I have the letter A smack in the middle, or I have a positive, let's say I have a minus sign in the middle. When you have fractions and things in the middle, look at this. You have 2/5, the minus sign exactly in the middle, and the A exactly in the middle. That causes a little problem in maths. You see, when you have things exactly in the middle, you don't know whether it belongs on top or it belongs where? Underneath. And that can make a real big difference to your calculations. Here's my advice to make life real easy. Whenever things are smack in the middle of a fraction, always move it to the top at the beginning of the question. Once again, I'm going to repeat that. When things are smack in the middle of a fraction, it causes problems. Always let it float up to the top. In other words, if somebody give me minus 2/5 A, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm going to rewrite it like this. The minus sign going to float to the top. The A going to float to the top. And the 5 going to remain underneath. I'm going to rewrite it like that. The 5 will automatically be positive because when you look to the left in the rewritten situation, you will see nothing here. So it will automatically be what? Positive. These are key tools to help you in maths. Okay? So let's try this question together, right? The first question. Let's rewrite this question properly. Plenty things are missing here. You have 2/5, right? You have a 4x who is not a fraction, and the 3/7 who is a fraction. You can't have a mixture of fractions and whole numbers. You have to convert everyone to fractions. So here's what I'm going to do. Get a different color. The 2/5 here, open brackets. You see this 4x? Put it as 4x divided by 1. This minus 3/7. The problem here is this minus sign belongs to the 3/7 because when you look to the left, you see a minus sign. But the minus sign smack in the middle. That's going to cause a problem. Pretend the minus sign is on top with the 3. So kind of write it like this. Minus 3 divided by 7. Everyone rewrite it like that. Anything that is a whole value, rewrite it as a fraction. Put the divide by 1. And if you have any signs or any letters that smack in the middle, let it drift up to the top. It will always be easier that way. Okay? Now remember, well, when we don't see any signs to the left, it is automatically positive, right? So if you want, you can imagine have a positive here, have a positive here, have a positive here, have a positive here. The 7 don't have a sign again, is a positive, right? So you can put in your positives, how it's training wheels. I mean, we're now starting off. When you get really good at maths, whenever you see nothing to the left, you can just imagine the positive when you get really good at maths. Let's start multiplying because this is a multiplication question because it have a brackets and the 2/5 is separated. We're going to take our time now and multiply out everything. Work out the top first. Everybody on top gets multiplied by positive 2. All right, so let's take our time here. Let's do the numbers first. We're working on only the top. You're only paying attention to the 2, the 4x, and the minus 3. 2 by 4 is 8. 2 by 3 is 6. We're finished with the numbers for the top. What letters involved? When you were multiplying the 2 and the 4x, the only letter involved was x. When it was multiplying the 2 and the 3, there were no letters involved. So leave that out. Finish with the letters for the top. Let's do the signs. When you multiply a positive by a positive, you get a positive. Look at there. When you multiply 2 positives, you get a positive. And when you multiply a positive by a minus, that's the 2 and the 3, a positive and a minus is a minus. Everyone take down up to there. We only finish with the top, We still have to multiply the underneath now. Take the 5 and multiply it by everyone underneath. Right, let's move to the underneath now. We're restarting the numbers, letters, and signs. Underneath now, 5 by 1 is what? Put your divide signs here. 5 by 1 is 5. And 5 by 7 is what? 35. Right? I just want to make sure this minus sign closer to the 6, right? That is all. When you multiply a positive by a positive, you get a positive. And when you multiply a positive by a positive, you get a positive. Take them up to there. We have to simplify it a little bit more now. We can't have two signs here and two signs here now. We have to simplify it to one sign at least. But take them up to there. Right. So let's simplify now. Here we have a positive divide by a next positive. When you divide two positives, and you just get one positive. So when you divide these two positives, instead of writing two separate positives, just put one positive smack in the middle. Because those two positive signs, due to division rule, were squished together to give you one positive. And now for the 6 and the 35. The 6 is a negative, the 35 is a positive. When you divide a negative and a positive, when you divide in a negative and a positive, and the two will squish together or combine together to give you one negative. So this negative and positive, don't write both of them. Just write one negative sign in the middle there. Because two of them squished or merged together to give you one negative. That is the end of the question. Do me a favor. I know the second one looks intimidating. Give it a shot. Just give it a shot. It don't matter if you get it wrong. You know I'm going to work out the whole thing just now. Take a 2 minutes and send an answer on the chat, please. Correct manner. Right? Let me see if you rewrote it. Right? You see how this, you have this minus 3/4 A, this minus sign in the middle, this A is in the middle, and that is trouble right there, right? So the minus sign and the A goes on top to visit the 3, right? So I'll put the minus sign and the A on top. This minus 2x, he's not a fraction, but we know what to do. 2x and you put divided by 1. We convert into a fraction. This positive sign belongs to the 5m and 2y, but he's in the middle. So put him on top, right? That's to make life easier now. How much people have up to there? Like you rewrote it into a format that's easier to deal with. Things that are smack in the middle, if it belongs to something, just move it to the top temporarily, right? And then you put in any missing signs. Like if it look to the left of the 4, it have nothing. So he's automatically positive. The 1, when you look to the left, he doesn't have anything. The 2y, he doesn't have anything. So put a positive. Take it from there. Start multiplying out the top now. Start multiplying out the underneath. Using numbers, then doing the letters, and then doing the signs. Let's multiply the top by the top. Right? Paying attention to the top items, numbers first. So you have 3, 2, and 5 on top. Let's just multiply out the numbers because we know there's a secret multiply here. 3 by 2 is 6. 3 by 5 is 15. So you should be seeing those two values there. Let's do the letters. For the top, when you multiply, well, the A and the X will bounce up here because you're multiplying the 3A by the 2X. A by X is AX or XA, anyhow you want to put it. And when you're multiplying the A by the M, because the 3 and the 5, he carrying an A and he carrying an M, you'll get AM or MA, any way you want to write it. Signs. He's minus, he's minus. When you multiply 2 minus, you get a positive. He is minus and he is positive. A minus and a positive, look at it there. Minus and a positive is a minus. So we kind of finish with the top there. We'll write this a little bit closer to here, right? Let's work out the underneath. We got a different color here. The numbers underneath is 4, 1, and 2. 4 multiplied by 1 is 4. 4 by 2 is 8. Any letters underneath? Well, the 4 by the 1 have no letters. The 4 by the 2y, well, the letter y is involved underneath, so you put back the y. And last is who now? Signs. Multiply two positives, you get a positive. Multiply a positive and a positive, you get a positive. We just have some minor simplification to do. We don't want to have a positive and a positive on it. We don't want to have two signs here and two signs here. No. It does look real unmathematical. It doesn't look neat. You have to simplify as much as possible. So according to the rules, if you divide in two positives, when you divide two positives, it is combined to give you what? One positive. So positive divide by our next positive. When you merge those two together, you get one positive sign. Put it in the middle. And over here, minus divide by a positive. A minus and a positive, when you divide them, when you divide this minus by a positive, you get a minus. Put the minus in the middle. That's the end of the question. How much people got that? Let's go. Now, in this question here, you're going to see one big divide sign and one item underneath. Let me explain how to interpret this in maths. Whenever you have more than one items on top, in this case, you have 4x and minus 20. You have two items, but you only have one item underneath, minus 2. You know what this really means in maths? It means everybody on top at the same time, both of them get divided by minus 2 at the same time. A lot of people think, this is what a lot of people do. They would just say 2 into 2 is 1, and they will choose one of these and say 2 into 4 is 2. Or they will say, all right, 2 into 2 is 1, 2 into 20 is 10, just like in primary school now. But they will choose one of them. The truth is, both of them at the same time get divided by the minus 2. So what you want to do is rewrite that question properly. This is how you want to rewrite the question. Instead of having one big divide sign, write back the 4x and put the minus sign closer to the 20. Here's what you want to do. Write two separate smaller divide signs. And individually put a minus 2 here and a minus 2. This is easier for the brain to process. This is showing that both of them, the positive 4, remember he's already positive 4. I should write my positive sign in here, right? The way I rewrote it accurately shows that both of them getting divided by minus 2. That makes it easier, harder to make a mistake. Everyone will write it like this. Everyone on top individually gets divided by the item underneath. So if they individually get divided, put two separate divide signs. If you had 3 items on top, if you will write 3 separate divide times. If you had 1,000,000 items on top, write 3 what? You had 1,000,000 divide signs. And once you do that, the question becomes easier now. Here's what you want to do. This is one set. Work this out separately and work this out separately using the multiplication and division rules. Let's do the numbers first. 4 divided by 2 is 2. What letter involved? The X. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. Then you handle him. Do the numbers first. 20 divided by 2 is 10. Then you do the numbers first, right? Well, have no letters. So just shrug your shoulders. Say, okay, no letters. Cool. Signs. When you divide 2 minus, you get what? Bam, you're finished. That's the end of the question. Nothing else. You can't really ask for anything easier than that, right? Once you separate them out, you're good to go. Okay? Take down that and see if you can do the last question for me. Remember, when you have one big divide sign, it means that everybody on top gets divided by the item underneath. So you want to write back the minus 5x and the minus 18ab and put a separate divide sign for him and a separate divide sign for the 18s. And then you put the minus 5y and you put another minus 5y. Both that clearly shows now it's easier for your brain to process that both of them getting divided by the item underneath at the same time. Now take your time now and apply the division rules to the numbers first, then the letters, and then the signs. Keep in mind, remember the trick. If a letter is underneath, at the end of the question, it has to remain underneath. You can't move letters from the underneath to the top. It doesn't work like that. If it starts off underneath, at the end of the question, the letter remains underneath. Yeah. Take 1 more minute. I think some of you are still trying to, process. Let's, for this one, the numbers first, right? 5 divided by 5 is 1. The letters, x divided by y. You put the x and you leave the y underneath. Remember, 5 divided by 5 is 1. The x was on top and the y underneath. The y cannot move to the top. And 2 minus signs. When you divide 2 minus, you get what? A positive. Let's do the next one. Now, 18 divided by 5. Remember, you already have your calculator. So I know some of you will put it as a mixed fraction. Do not work with mixed fractions, right? Leave everything as an improper. Now, 5 cannot go into 18, right? And you're not allowed to use your calculator, so I don't want no decimals. If you cannot divide 18 by 5, just leave it as 18 divided by 5. Take my advice. The examiner will not care. You might appreciate that, in fact. Right? So 5 cannot go into 18. Leave it as an improper fraction. That is my advice. Okay? Do not put a mixed fraction there. Please don't. Right? Even though, I just want to answer this question, even though you put it as a mixed fraction, it's still mathematically correct, but it does look real crazy. It does look ugly, right? You don't want to put that. Nobody likes that. The 3 letters involve A, B, and Y. The A and B was on top. Y was living underneath. Nobody moving. And here you have 2 minus signs again. When you divide 2 minus, put a positive in the middle. That's the end of the question, right? That's my final answer, and I would get full marks in the exam for putting that.